Hello there, welcome back to the studio and welcome to another critique video. This one we're gonna call Quick Tish. I don't know, I'm still working on that one. Anyway, I know what you're thinking. Andrew, what is that ridiculous thing on your head? Not this, this. Do you like my hat? I love it. This is probably one of my favorites, if not my favorite. I don't know, the Do You Even Tish Bro hat was pretty cool, but this one I think takes the cake. Here, I'll give you a closer look. There you go. Keeping it real with cobalt teal. Cobalt teal's gotta be one of my favorite colors. Have you noticed? I love that color. Anyway, came up with that design a while ago, and it's been sitting on the computer for, far out, close to a year, and finally just went, nope, we've got to do it. It's now a patch. The patch is now attached to the hat. I'm now working out all the supply chain type stuff. A few issues going on there with postage and getting goods and stuff in and out, but I think we've got a solution now. So the last little thing that was the bottleneck in our production was, how do I get the patch onto the hat? So me or Rachel or my blessed mother-in-law, who's absolutely lovely, shout out to Rose, she actually attached that one for me. How do we do it so somebody's not sitting there by hand stitching this thing together, right? Because ain't nobody got time for that. So I think we've got it now. I think we've got it. New Zealand might be a little bit limited as far as merch goes, and I have to see it and wear it myself, right? I want to know that it's good quality stuff. So rest assured it's going to be good quality. Silly, but good quality. And while I'm at it, what do you reckon? There we go. Here. What do you think about that? Do you recognize that? Come on. Who's that? That's Vermeer's Girl with a Pearl Earring, another in the series by Andrew Tavares, and who's very kindly allowed me to use this as merch. This has got to be one of my favorites. And I also got these on white tees as well. So it's coming. Merch is on the way. Okay. A few people have been asking about the merch anyway, so I thought I'd just give you a little bit of an update. I'll let you know as soon as it's available. It's not available yet. I'm still working out all the bugs and stuff, but it will be coming out very soon. And when it does finally hit, it's going to be really limited edition. I'm actually thinking of doing a run of only 25 of each hat. And there's only 4 that are available. And then I'll probably do another round with brand new designs. So if you're interested, when I do announce it, and I'll announce it on Patreon first, you got to be quick. All right. Okay, cool. Now, that out of the way, lots of stuff to talk to you about here in this video. Lots of good stuff. And I thought what I'd do, rather than drill down into just one painting over the whole session, we would do some quick tishing, right, of these 3 paintings. I've got 3 paintings here. I've got one by Robert, which you can see here. I've got one by Mitch, which is awesome right here. And I got one by Stephen. So these ones here, I think I can see some really incredible things within each of these paintings, some really amazing little technical details. But then there's just a couple of little tweaks that I would make if it were me. All right. Now you might come up with some of your own ideas, but in this video, what I hope to do is actually point out some more compositional things, but these are what would be maybe minor adjustments. These aren't a wholesale rework. It's just if we just changed just a couple of things. We don't need to go overboard, but just a couple of things, it would make a really profound difference in the painting, I feel, anyway. So without further ado, let's get stuck in. Now, if you're new here, I'll just throw my things around on my desk. If you're new here, welcome. This is, the critique style video is one of these things that I do in addition to some other things, some other time lapses. And basically, this is our opportunity to really just talk shop. And I think that composition is one of those things that is often overlooked. But you might be going, Andrew, what are you doing here? There we go. What are you doing here? You know, why am I looking at a screen? Why aren't I looking at you in your studio actually painting? Some people are thrown off by the digital. Well, digital here, talking to you while I'm drawing in Photoshop, it gives us the opportunity to actually talk about these paintings. And it gives me the opportunity to draw over the top and actually really highlight things without it being in a live studio type setting. I'm getting an enormous amount out of the digital medium just for my own compositions, but I find as a teaching tool, this is just second to none. So it really does give me a great opportunity here to talk to you about some of the things that I think about while I'm painting. And I hope that these videos are going to give you something that you can take away into your own studio. Now, again, if you're new here, you might not have heard me talk about the 3 questions, and we will certainly talk about 3 questions. But I will also just throw out a couple of little tidbits here and there of little things that you could do, not just for this painting, but as a general concept to apply to pretty much every landscape painting. We're going to be dealing with landscapes here in this video. I'll do more with the portraits very, very soon. So, the 3 questions, right? Let's just go over these again. A little bit of a reminder for everybody. Question 1, what's working? What's working? What's working? Okay. Now, this is my opportunity to really celebrate whatever I love about the painting. And in particular, this is, you know, something I think about when I'm looking at my own work, because we do tend to get down in the dumps quite often. I don't know. Am I alone in that? I look at my work very harshly and I feel like crap and I beat myself up over what I've done or haven't done. And you can get a little bit negative. So I think it's really important to break that by starting off positive and go, okay, what is working? What do I like about this? Then when we're in that position and we've celebrated some of those successes, what's not working? Then we address what's not working. Okay? That's our opportunity to really just address those pain points and things that just could be better. They're not quite there. They could be better. What are we going to do about it? And that's when the 3rd question comes in. What if? What if ... Now that's an open-ended possibility question where the potential is basically unveiled in front of us, and we get to see what our painting could do. It's like, oh, what if I actually move that mountain? That mountain's not quite working. What if I moved it? Or what if I changed the color? Or what if I moved those trees? Or what if I did this, that, the other? Or a pterodactyl, okay? So that's essentially the 3 questions, and that's something that I like to ask myself when it comes time to, address anything that, why did I do it in that layer? Oh, dang. Okay. Anyway, let me just get that layer back. Command Alt, Command C, Command V, and bring it on back. See, no harm done. Isn't that great? Now we're gonna make this really super quick, and we're gonna go over those things and thinking about those 3 questions. Of course, always thinking about those 3 questions, but I'm not gonna drag it out here on the screen. We're just gonna go over it very, very quickly. Now, I find when it comes to composition that there's only a handful of things that we have to deal with, and you know, I said this in my last critique video, that there are some things that I'm starting to drill down into, and really this has caused me to really think about what are the fundamentals. We've got line, color, and tone, right? We're trying to achieve a convincing sense of form, depth, and light with use of line, color, and tone. So I'm always thinking in these terms. Now here, there are a few things going on with line, so the composition and the overall drawing behind the painting, which is excellent, but there's still a couple of things that I'd want to address in terms of line. There's a couple of things that I'd want to address in terms of color, and a few things with tone, and I think that we could make this fundamentally a different painting. Now I'll go straight for the red, and we'll move through this quite quickly. Generally, I think it's pretty good, but compositionally, I would want to know what's the painting about. Okay, we might need a little bit more of a destination. Where is that destination? We could put it anywhere. I'm thinking, is it that mountain? My eye tends to gravitate towards that for some reason, the depth beyond and then coming back through. So could we play that up a little bit? So when we're a little bit confused about what the painting could be about, generally we move on. Our goal as painters is to just stick, have the viewer stay with us there in the composition for as long as possible. So if we're using line, tone, and color, in just the right way, we can have the viewer feel like they're engaged in that story and they want to stick around and keep looking at our painting. Okay, I would have said this in a past video, but there is a statistic out there that the average viewer spends about 20 seconds looking at a painting before they move on. We need to beat that average. And one of the ways to do it is to keep everything kind of happening in this scene and continuing to direct our eye within the confines of the painting. Now, here, I feel like we're getting a little bit dangerously close to a bit of an arrow right here that's pointing right there. I just get this feel and this trend like I'm heading right there over towards the edge of that canvas. Do you see what I'm saying there? So I'd want to work out some way to open that up, and maybe if we open this up, brought that mountain back over here, it might open up the valley here and create more of a destination right there. Okay, the other thing that I might want to do is have a bit of access here in the foreground. I think I'm finding that this is forming a little bit of a block right here. I can't get through here, and I really want to get through, and I'm finding that these trees are just blocking my path there. It doesn't have to be completely open. As long as there's just some gap, I think that will allow the viewer to kind of want to explore those more distant reaches in the painting, but it all starts with a lead-in point from the foreground. Now, why is that not working? We're back. Okay, so I'd want to see just a little bit of a lead-in point straight into the painting. Just a little gap in the trees will do. Okay, now I see some talk now and again, when people upload a painting to the Facebook page, the Tish Zone, the private group here that's available to you as a patron here on Patreon. I'll explain more at the end if you have no idea what that is. Where somebody will make a post and they'll go, well, what's it need? Does it need more trees? Does it need more this? Does it need more that? Like, what am I doing wrong here? And, there's the tendency to want to continue to add to it. Generally, I try to look at the painting and go, is there anything I could take away? Have I just put too much into this? Because generally speaking, adding more and more and more and more to it waters down the overall message of the painting. Simple generally is better. So if there's ever the discussion, maybe I'll add more trees on this side to frame it out. Now suddenly you've created goalposts. Now for my Aussie viewers here, you guys will know about this. I suppose every country has got its own sport, right? But in Australia, there's a thing called Aussie Rules Football, AFL, right? Now AFL has got two major goalposts, and then it's got two little point posts either side. That's the goal, right in the middle. That's what you kick that little oval ball straight into that, and you get a goal, right? I know what Gridiron's got something like that, hasn't it? Okay, but this could form that goalpost style. So if you have a tree over this side and then you think, oh, maybe I just need to frame it, I'll put a tree over that side. Now suddenly you've created this effect where you've weakened the painting. You've gone away from that tension that we should be building into the composition by balancing it out on the left and the right. Is that making sense? Okay, so now let's do a quick little time lapse with that said. And we'll do a quick Tish here. Oh, before I do, color. That addresses line, right? Let's just address color really quickly. Right here, not a bad color, really, but I'm feeling that there's a bit too much yellow coming through in some of these areas, and we want this entire section of the painting to really go away into the background. The warmth in these notes here, whilst it does work from there up, it doesn't quite work with these yellows here in the foreground. Yellow is tricky. Warmth in a landscape is really tricky. The more orange, red, and yellow that we add in those distant reaches of the painting, the more those distant hills tend to start to come forward. you want to play that down by shifting that violet. So when I do a quick little rework here, what I'm going to do is push those more towards the blue and violet, get away from those reds, oranges, and yellows, and then, you know, see if we can create some distance and depth that way. Then when it comes time to really amplify the yellow in the foreground, you create this push and pull effect. You push that background all the way into the distance, you pull that foreground all the way towards the viewer. And that's what we're trying to do in creating that separation and depth. Again, remember, we've got line, color, and tone, and we're trying to achieve form, depth, and light. Now, the last thing that I would want to address here is the light. So, where's the light coming from? Well, we get a very clear indication about that light right there with the light shining on the mountain. I think that that's excellent. So the light shining here on this mountain, that works. But I'd want to see a little bit more of a convincing sense of light here in the foreground, and the way the light actually interacts with some of these shapes. So if the light's coming from here, would we get some shadows here? I mean, it depends on the angle we're looking at this this foreground, but I think it'd be really cool to have a little bit of light and shade across this. Last thing that I'll say with this one is a bit of a repoussoir wouldn't hurt, but it might be too much of a wholesale change for this painting. But that's looking past elements in the foreground to peer into the landscape. I'm playing with this a lot with a painting that I'm doing for the course. So maybe I've just got repoussoir on my mind. Don't know what that is? Go and check out some of those earlier critique videos. Okay, with that said, I'm gonna get stuck straight into this and we'll start, changing this one up and run a quick little time lapse, and I'll come back at the end of this one and we'll get into the next. All right, here we go. Okay, that's what I came up with, and you know, it's all right. It's a quick one, but there was a lot of really great stuff to work here with here in Robert's painting. So we'll go back to the start. Again, I just wanted to create a bit more depth, knock some of those yellows back mainly, so working with that color. There were a couple of tonal things going on as well, but we want to get those tiers of depth just sinking into the background. Progressively, they get lighter, so we're going to watch some of those darker areas and those peaks in the distance, but also that color needs to shift more towards the blue and the violet. The red, orange, and yellows need to drop out, so anything that starts to shift red, orangey, or even green, which is a symptom of having too much yellow in there, then knock that out, and then gradually what happens is those hills start to sink away into the distance. Okay, so here we go. This is the other thing that I wanted to do here, was actually create a bit more of separation with these mountains here and create a little bit of a valley right here, which gives you a bit of a destination and a little place to go and a sense of mystery and intrigue. Well, that's the goal anyway. Where is this river going? You know, it gives you an indication of, oh, that's the destination. That's where we're going. We're going to go down this path here in the foreground. We're going to exit down here somewhere. We're going to follow the river. Seen Willow? Follow the river. Anyway, so again, took some of that yellow out of these highlights here on the front of that mountain. By taking that out, it allowed this yellow, which I increased. I actually added more to the saturation and the intensity of the greens here in the foreground, so it brings that forward. The other thing that I did, which you might have noticed, is I trimmed around on some of those trees. I called the tree surgeons in, and I said, guys, hey, come on, we gotta cut out that middle section because I need to see what's going on there. And we took the top off this tree, which you'll remember from there. Just took the top off that, which brought all the trees roughly into the same scale. So that's kind of the way I would approach this painting if it were me, or a similar composition. Again, it's not quite at the same detail that you would have seen in the other critique videos. It's not a full-on digital drawing, but it's kind of getting there. So that's what I'd do if it were me. Robert, I hope you found this helpful, and you watching, I hope you found this helpful, and maybe have a few techniques to apply to your next painting. Let's get stuck into, right now, Mitch's painting. All right, here we go. Beautiful work, Mitch. Really, really like this painting. Now, I'm assuming this was photographed at an angle because of the glare, right? No problem. What I'm going to do first, before we even get working on this, is I might just go ahead and we'll do a wee edit. Let's go distort. And I'm going to get this kind of level and with straight sides and top and bottom as well. And I'm going to make an assumption here about the overall proportion. So I hope I'm not going to distort it too bad, but it looks like it might be a 3/4 format, kind of like an 8x10, 36x48 proportion, where the height is 75% that of the width. Maybe, I don't know. We'll see. So I'm just going to drag these corners out, and we'll get this looking relatively straight. All right, that feels about right to me. Now we'll go ahead and crop this thing. Boom, there it is. Okay, let's go ahead and clear those guides, and away we go. Command C, Command V, cool. And let's add a few more layers. Now, one of the things that I think I'd like to do here is just have a bit of a chat with you, a bit of a discussion, if we may, about light. And this has got all kinds of really great stuff going on, but there's something happening with the light, and I want to see if you can see this. So if that's 28, let's call this one, let's go 5600. All right, okay, boom. Okay, what I'm going to do is just shift this guy. All right, I need a little bit of drawing space there, just to the right of the painting. So we've got a bit of a sketch pad here for us to talk. But first, we'll zoom right in on this painting, and we'll have a good chat about this. Now, immediately, what's working for me is it's exceptionally well painted. I'm sure we can all agree at just how well painted this is. I love the foreground. I love this detail happening here, little elements, the flowers, the sense of perspective driving attention into the distance. It's great. Overall, the colors are fantastic. I mean, look at the quality here. This is what we were talking about in the previous painting, and Robert's painting, remember? Look at that sense of color perspective here with those violets way out here in the distance, and the contrast, the difference between those violets and, let's say, what's happening over here with some of the conifers that are just sneaking through little areas there. That works really well. So there's a lot of really cool stuff going on. It's a great painting. And Mitch here would totally get away with just leaving the painting as is. The point here is to try and be really just look at it and just go, okay, something not quite working, let's just drill down into it and come up with a quick fix. And maybe it might be quick for me to critique. I don't know if it will necessarily be as quick a fix, but this is something that I might like to do maybe on the next one, or just fix it on this one. But Mitch, totally up to you. First of all, I just want to address this sense of pattern. We've got pine, willow, pine, willow, pine, willow, almost like beads on a string in a very even cadence, a very even rhythm. Whenever we do that, if it's not going for a specific look, I mean, have you ever seen these? And Mitch, I'm not accusing you of doing this, but have you ever been to a hotel room, right, or somewhere, and you've seen they all seem to have this painting on the wall, right? There's a painting in a nice frame, and it's a very nice painting, but it's like it's the hillside, and it's a very even hillside, and they've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and that they're all the same tree, and they're done with maybe gold leaf and spatters of paint, and that's it. I bet that there is a factory somewhere that is just churning these things out. But it's very, it's decorative. It could be quite effective. I've seen a hillside with 7 trees in a row back in Lawrence, where I used to live down in the South Island. So it does happen, but there's something about it. Unless it's intentionally rhythmic and an abstraction of the landscape, it's best to kind of try and come up with something that looks more natural. So what can we do here? I would suggest breaking it and opening up the space in some way. So what I might suggest is to take this tree right here in the center and shift it over to the left. What that will do is it'll open up this space right here. Okay, that's just a compositional thing. The other thing that I might like to do, if it were me, is create some distance in the depth. If we had some trees that were closer and another tree that was further away, you might create that separation and then use this instead of something that the viewer has to get over and kind of stumble through or trip over. I'm gonna assume that that is a creek because it's so reflective and bright, reflecting that light shining on it. Or it could be a path, but either way, both a creek and or a path could serve as a vector to enter into the composition. What I do is put it this way. You've got a little bit of a trail right there already, but have something that leads a viewer straight into the scene. Just a couple of things. The elevation, we're quite elevated here in terms of the overall scene, looking down, and so that gives us a lot more foreground. That's totally cool, but if that's the case, I might, we might have to do something with increasing the size of some of these elements here, because the size of this compared to this, it really makes us feel like we're quite high up above the foreground, which it kind of lends to this disassociative thing. You want your viewer to really associate with what they're looking at, so you want them to feel like they're in it. But if you provide that separation, I mean, push this to the extreme, right? An extreme aerial view with no foreground, as if they're looking out of an airplane window. They're not in the landscape, they're looking down on this thing. So, push it to an extreme if you're having trouble thinking about your own composition. Have I done that? Could I make them feel like they're more part of the scene? Anyway, you get what I'm saying? Okay, hopefully, 2 of you. Okay, so, couple of thoughts there. But the main thing I want to talk about here, is the light. Right, do you see it? You do? Okay, here's what I see. I see a very straight shadow here, and at the exact same angle, another shadow here, and at the exact same angle, another shadow here, and another shadow here. That lends itself to a light source that is really, really far away. But if that background mountain is anything to go by, and the highlight over here is anything to go by, it seems that light's shining over there, but it's shining down on this. But the angles of the shadows of the trees don't match. Now, let me draw this out for you over here in our little sketchbook, because one of the things that I think will help us generally is a sense of light. Let's go back to this layer, and I'm going to color that in gray, and that will give us something to talk about here. Okay. What I like to do is I like to pinpoint and think about a light source. Where is that light coming from? And then create some sort of light model, or, light model. Okay, so let's say we've got a light source here, okay? And it's just a little pinpoint of light. Oh, we'll put a couple of rays on there, shall we? Okay, there's our wee son. Look at him, isn't he cute? Little fella. There you go. All right, now here, what I'm going to do is just draw a series of circular shapes just to illustrate this point. We'll do this really quickly. Now, if I were, let's not call them perfect circles for the Photoshop purists who are pulling their hair out right now, screaming at their screens, going, Andrew, there is a quicker way to do it. I don't care. We've already established this. It's all good. It's all good. Chill out. All right. So I want to think about how is the light going to be hitting that sphere. It's not a circle, it's a sphere. How's it going to be hitting that sphere? How's it going to be hitting this sphere? Now, I want you to shift your brain from 2D thinking to 3D thinking. Can you do that? Let's imagine that our sun is really far away, and that sphere is between us, right, and our light source, which would mean that these spheres are going to be slightly backlit. Now, if they're backlit, then we're going to get more shadow than we are highlight, correct? So it'll look a little something like that. Now, if we're over here, a bit of a crescent moon shape, right? That looks a little something like that. Trim up the outside a little bit. Come on, clean up your act, Andrew. There we go. If we're down here, we're going to have slightly more as we get further away from the light source, and as that object that is being lit, as that object that's being lit comes further away from that light source in relation to our point of view, and push this to the extreme, right? Let's push it all the way to the extreme. Imagine this, and close your eyes if it helps you imagine, right? Imagine that light source is really far away and you're looking at that light source. Now the object that's being lit is now behind you. Turn around and look at that object, and what you'll notice is that object is becoming front lit, right? It's no longer backlit, it's front lit. Then again, bring that object all the way between you and the light source, and now it's backlit again, right? So the shadows, the point is, the shadows have got to change relative to the source of light. And this is what really sets the scene in your painting. We've got to really focus on our light source. Where is the light coming from? And what do those shadows look like as a result of that? Now here, this shadow over on this side is going to be a little bit different. Now I'm hoping for a few people watching this that something's going to click today with this video. I really hope. But let me know if I can provide more detail on this, because maybe we should talk about light. Because I'm doing this all the time in my paintings, and I don't always get it right. In fact, right now, spoiler alert, with the Oil Painting Essentials course, I'm doing something right now with light where I'm bending the rules, but I'm explaining how to bend the rules and why to bend the rules, creating more of a sense of dramatic light within a painting. So when you kind of get a sense of this stuff for a narrative effect, you might be able to play with it a little bit more and change it up. But anyway, I digress. We'll just stick with this example for now. Now, hopefully here you can see our series of misshapen spheres being lit by a light source, but notice how the shadows and the highlights change relative to the object's position. Our light source is in the same place. Our light source didn't move, the object moved. Now, just to kind of get a little bit more of a sense of this, we'll put a wee little highlight right there, just on the front, just right where that light would be bouncing right off the surface, and we might even, oh look, we might even get just a touch of a darker shadow here. Why not just get just a little bit fancy, eh? Just a little bit. Blur across those lines. There we go. That looks pretty good. All right, we're nearly there. What we probably could do, depending on the surface of, again, this is really going to depend on the surface that they're on. You might want to just, if you're going to do this as an exercise, might be a good idea, but indicate some sort of shadow. How would that shadow look right there being cast? A bit of a weird looking shadow, but how would that look being cast by that object? And that would depend on the angle of the plane that you were looking at this on. Okay. Sometimes though, obviously our light source is, in some scenes it's going to be a lot higher, so we'd get thinner shadows. But anyway, let's just call these planets. If you believe in outer space, let's just say they're floating around in a vacuum. So we're just worried about the light on the object itself. Now that we've said that, now that we've talked about light source and light angle, have a look at those trees now. So what we need to do first, the first step, is identify the light source. Once we've done that, then we can go ahead and, there we go. once we've done that, we can go ahead and work out the angle of those shadows. So first I'm going to do is get in here and say, okay, we've got a light source. I think it's going to be off the top of the painting. Probably, actually, in point of fact, it's going to be quite a bit higher up, isn't it? Now, if we decide it's right there, check out the angle of this shadow right here. And the angle of this shadow here and there. It's incongruous. What we need to do is flick it back the other way so it's leaning in the opposite direction, coming more this way, right? But here's the way I do it. And I actually did have quite a detailed explanation of how I do this in my Epic Milford tutorial, you might remember. Okay, here we go. So again, there's our light source. Now, let's work out where the light's going to be coming from. And the way I'll do this is have a series of lines that radiate outwards from that single point. Now, I'm not going to change in this painting the perspective. I'm just going to make a point right now just about the light. And the reason I'm not going to change the perspective is it's going to be a wholesale rework of the entire painting. But here is roughly where that light source is going to be, where we've decided that light source is working. It works with those background mountains. It nearly, you can imagine the light coming from that light source and clipping the top over here, way out on the left-hand side, clipping those little fine highlights. I'll give you a bigger view of this. And so you can see that starts to make sense. So how would that look over here with these trees and those trees? That means the new shadow over here has got to be following in that direction. This shadow of this tree has got to follow in this direction. This one over here in that direction. And that lines up and leads the eye in towards the light, which is kind of cool. And that means we could also have some shadows on some of these other elements in the foreground, like so. So what we're going to do is play just with that light source alone, just that one critique, and we'll redesign it with that. I'm not going to shift the trees around. I'm just going to redraw the shadows, do a little bit of a time lapse here, and then come back after I've made these changes. Okay, I think that's going to do it. I colored outside the lines. I hope that's okay. I used to get told off for doing that when I was like 5. Don't color outside the lines. That's the best part. So here, what I've done is just change that light angle as we were discussing, and that's all I've done. You might not notice much of a difference, but it's only subtle. So this could be changed on this painting to make it just more congruous. So we went from this, and notice how everything's very parallel, very leaning, but I must say, a really good sense of light and dark in terms of our value, in terms of the color. This painting's great. Mitch, you've done a fine job here. But it's just a matter of just tweaking those angles to make sure everything feels nice and congruous with the light source, the way it kind of feels it's coming from in this painting. And we went to that. Before, after. There we go. Okay, so I think that's going to about do it for this one. I hope you came away with a couple of techniques there. Something to put to use on a future painting, maybe. Let's talk about Stephen's painting. Stephen. Great job, Stephen. Not a whole lot of things that I can say about this besides I love it. I think it's great. A few little changes I might make, but overall, it's cool, man. What a cool painting. first and foremost, I would want to really establish what the painting's about, and you've done that. I mean, we'll all agree, looking at this painting, it's about a plane and the mountains. There's the story. It's a very simple painting. It's very effective. It's very dynamic, but it's really about that plane. The plane is the heaviest part of that. So if the plane was the heaviest part of the composition, what I would want to do first, and I'll get my green marker out here, is I would want to subordinate everything else to that plane. So if this is no, not like that. If this is dominant, the plane, then how can I make this mountain in the background go away? Look at the tonal value here towards the tail section and even some of the darker tone on the wings compared to some of the darker tones here in the mountain. Now again, remember, we're talking about line, color, and tone. And how can we use those three things to communicate form, depth, and light, right? And also, how can we use those three things to help us with our story? All of these things connect. They're all interrelated. So what I'm hoping to do here with these videos is to give you a sense of that, a sense of the tricks and the considerations that are in your little tool bag there so that you can continue to use these to push your painting even further. So if we know that it's about the plane and we want to subordinate everything else that is not the plane and allow that to take a little bit more of a key role and create more depth, right? Create that sense of a story. What can we do with the color and the tone of that mountain? Well, may I suggest that we desaturate and we tone it down or tone it up, lift some of these deeper tones here, lift them into more of a mid-tone range, allowing the lights that are on that plane to be a little bit lighter and allowing those darks that are there to be a little bit darker. Now I know what you're saying. Andrew, how could those lights be any lighter? Because that snow is bright white. How could that be any lighter than on the plane than they are on the mountain? How's that going to work? We've got a way. We also have to think like an artist, right? We have to think like an artist. We have to think of a creative way that could happen. I see the opportunity for a brilliant highlight somewhere to just hit that wing and just glow off the wing. I think that could definitely work. Just compositionally speaking, I think the sky's great, but I might like to see something here with maybe a cloud or some sense of weather, something here. And I would also, just compositionally speaking, you've heard me talk about it before, talking about lines, I would want to break these in some way before they exit the canvas. That's what I would do. So just a couple of little quick fixes, and these are things that can be fixed on this painting without a wholesale rework, just painting around things. Don't change the composition or anything, but just to add a couple of things. Add a little bit of cloud, add a little bit of atmosphere, and then just start pushing and pulling the plane and that background to just create more separation and depth. Okay, I think we've talked about it. Let's get after it. Well, there we go. That was fun. Lots of fun. It's really subtle, right? I'm just trying to work with the vectors and all that stuff going on, trying to come up with something that is going to help the story along, but not take away too much from what Stephen has done here. Again, love this painting. So I've added the cloud over here. You'll see it as soon as my marker is there. There we go. I've added this cloud as a way to kind of draw the attention back down into the composition. Then we pick up this line of the mountain. We're here in the plain. It's kind of confused and broken off on this side, which it draws attention back again. We could work more with those cyclic vectors. If it were me though, and I had the opportunity to do this painting from scratch, I would focus on what is happening in front of this plane, pick up the entire thing and move it back into the composition this way so that you create space for the plane to travel into. And then I would move the mountain more as a destination or something there as a supporting element, as an obstacle for the plane to go over or around. Just if it were me. But generally what I did here is I just lifted everything in the background up to a mid-tone. You'll see it here. Lifted that up to a mid-tone and allowed the plane to come further forward. So all those shadow portions of the mountain, getting a bit lighter. That means the darks in that plane are going to register as much darker. And so I just did that with a series of digital glazes, if you will. That creates a bit more sharpness and heaviness with the plane itself. And then just to allow some of those glints of light to read a little bit brighter, I also darkened down some of the lights in the snow. So overall, lots of fun. I hope you got something out of this. Stephen, great painting, by the way. Love this one. Nice, quick little critique. That's what I would do if it were me. All right, let's wrap this thing up. Beautiful scene, isn't it? Well, thank you for watching this video all the way to the end. I was trying to catch some dinner, but no such luck. Not a single bite. Oh well, still beautiful out. Absolutely stunning out here on the water. So this week I've got another video coming your way, and that will be released on either Thursday or Friday, but it is a painting tutorial for those of you who have been asking for a painting tutorial. I got a very special one just for you here on Patreon. If you're new here, welcome. Thanks for being here. And if you've been here for a while, thank you for your support. I really couldn't do this without you, and your support means the world to me. Now, I did mention earlier in this video about the private Facebook page that's available to you here as a patron on Patreon. There's loads of people on that page already. It's over 1,000 people now. And so if you want to sign up there, all you've got to do is click that link down below on Patreon when you're watching this on Patreon. And make sure you provide your Patreon name or the email that you signed up to Patreon with, and agree to those group rules. And I actually need to be able to verify that you're following me on Patreon, because if there's no name there, I just hit decline. So if you have been declined inadvertently and you are following me over here on Patreon, no problem. Just go ahead and sign up for that page again. Well, thanks again for stopping by. It's been fun. Cool. I'm gonna get out of here and try and catch a fish, because I'm hanging out for some fish tacos. All right, wish me luck. We'll see you next time.